Hello everyone, my name's the Drawly Morgs, and... man, we have a troublemaker already in this series. But before I get into this video, for those who are new to this series, this is a series I started where I cover anime and mostly manga that I have read and watched over the years that I feel aren't really well known and aren't that popular. For my first episode, I covered the manga plus anime, so if you want to check that out, please do. But stick around for this episode first, because this episode was a bit of a struggle for me. Also, a little disclaimer for when I illustrate the characters, not only did I draw them, but I also redesigned them! I'll be making a mini sequel video explaining the reasons why I changed the characters to, you know, look the way that they do, if you're interested. Or I'll have it pop up on the side of the screen so you can actually see and check it out. But for now, have you heard of Desert Coral? No, not the color Google, I'm talking about the manga. Desert Coral was created by Wataru Murayama back in late 2002. Wataru has also created the series Graveyard Magnetics, Hakushin Ruruko, Fukigen Cinderella, Honkyu Dunsha, and Dysfunctional Family, also known as Is a Family Like This Worth Keeping? Don't know why it's got two titles, but you know. And unlike Natsume Mukai, the creator of Plus Anima, Wataru is still up and kicking with their series Dysfunctional Family, or as it's also, again, called, Is a Family Like This Worth Keeping, being her latest series that came out in 2021. Honestly, I think any of these works could also be in the Have You Heard of It series, but I haven't read a single one of these guys, and I'm not positive if I want to. You see, remember when I said this episode is a bit of a troublemaker at the beginning? Well, you see, Desert Coral is kind of a bit of a mess. An interesting mess, in the mess of a first-time mangaka mess, but a mess nonetheless. Before getting into the general plot and characters, I have to note a few things about Desert Coral that really show that even picking up the series might be a bit hard. Firstly, Desert Coral has 5 volumes, which is short, but that's not a big deal. However, if you want to read this series in English or Taiwanese, then you're kind of shit out of luck. Desert Coral only has 3 volumes in English and 4 volumes in Taiwanese. And for us English readers, it is near impossible to even find a full fan translation of this series online. Your only bet to reading this full series is not only buying all 3 English volumes, but also buying volumes 4 and 5 in a different language, and either you know that language or you're willing to Google translate the shit out of it. And to be fully transparent, I have not finished this series, because if you do buy 4 and 5 for the volumes, they are at minimum $30 each. And I'm sorry, I have a feeling even if I bought the mangas and tried translating them myself, the story just wouldn't make any sense. Because leading into point 2, now, something that I briefly mentioned at the beginning, this is Wataru's first manga ever, and that is a feat to do. But also that means the chances of it being a good series is a bit on the slimmer side. Not only that, but here's the thing. Remember how I said this was created in late 2002? Well, the series was fully completed in early 2004. AKA, Desert Coral was created in less than 2 years. 5 volumes in 2 years. Now, is this possible? Yes, it is. However, just reading Desert Coral, you can tell that it had needed a lot more time in the oven, and that it's trying to be overly ambitious with everything. With that being said, let me talk about the story and the plot a bit. Desert Coral is about our main character, Nato Saki. He is a high school student that sleeps a lot and dreams of a place called Oragos, where the majority of the story takes place, and he has a childhood friend named Chisato, who takes care of him from time to time, and that's really all we know about him. Yeah, so one thing is, even though Nato is the main character, compared to every other character in the series, we don't really know much about him as a person. His goals in high school, his dreams for the future, any unique or natural talents that he might have. Nothing. We really only learn through the series that he is a coward that isn't really strong, at least for a while, and his one goal, which I will cover in 1 second. Also, to be honest with you, you can just forget about Chisato, because she isn't important at all. I honest to God don't know why the creator even bothered giving Nato a friend in the real/maybe real world in the first place, because for at least the first 3 volumes, we only get to see her like about 2, maybe 3 times? Anyways, looping back to Nato's dreams, like I said, he visits a world called Orgos, where he watches the lives of a group that calls themselves Desert Coral. That's where the title gets its name. This group is composed of Lucia, a Leucavithate? I honest to God don't know how to pronounce that. Epsilon, a swordsman. Lavinius, a catboy. Camus, a elfis. And Euro, a boy that is actually a girl, because anime is gonna anime. Now, you might have noticed I used some really weird dumb words, like Luca something and elfis. I'm gonna be honest, we can treat these guys kind of like light elves and dark elves. The Luca whatevers being light elves. They're extremely powerful when they turn 10 years old, and they also have a very short lifespan. They rarely reach the age of 20. And then you have the Elfis, which have a little bit of an easier name to say, that are dark elves, where they are semi-immortal and are also strong, but not as strong as the light elves. So they literally kill the light elves before they turn 10, so they don't do any funny business or get any funny little ideas. Elfis, aka the dark elves, overall control Orgos and are the villains of the series, but I would say they aren't really that important until maybe the end of Volume 3? Maybe they're more important in Volume 4? The wiki says they're the main antagonists, but at least for Volumes 1 through 3, and what little I get to see in Volume 4, I would disagree. We do run into another problem, where there are a lot of characters, and they range in quality. Euro is pointless, Lucia is important, she is our leading lady, but I would say she's kinda bland. Epsilon isn't important really till the midpoint of Volume 3, and even then, he has only one important thing about him, and I don't see why we need him, because we have Lavinius, who is part of the reason why Epsilon is important, but Lavinius, at least, has a personality and a somewhat interesting backstory, and who is actually notable through the whole series. And then there is Camus, who I would say is the best character, because at least she's actually got a personality, is interesting, has a cool backstory that's connected more to the plot, and she tries to kill Nato in Volume 3. So she's great in my book. I know that's a little bit of a spoiler if you plan on reading this series. Just know that it is such a small detail, and the reason behind it is more important than knowing she plans on doing it at some point. Now, I said we spend most of our time in Orgos, so does that mean the MC, aka Nato, is the lens that we watch through as he's watching all these characters go through dramatic adventures that he can't interact with, watching these people he slowly cares about go through trials and tribulations, worrying about them in the real world as he struggles in the fact that he can't help them, and even questions if the world in his mind is real? Nah, here's how he actually gets there. Lucia and Camus have a fun little rivalry, and Camus has the ability to summon monsters, which is like super hard to do. And Camus' like, well, I know you can't do it, cause you're lame and not as strong as me. And Lucia goes, bet. And then she summons Nato to fight, not knowing he exists, by the way. She just summons literally anything, and then he is slash TP'd into the world of Orgas, and we go on this weird little fun adventure. Oh boy. Now, looping back around to when I mentioned Nato only has one goal, well, that was a little bit of a lie, cause this man can't make up his damn mind. You could say his goal is to get back home cause he doesn't want to get involved with this real world, but he has the conflict of, but Lucia's really cute though, and I don't want to make her sad, because he's horny on main really fast. Yeah, never expect Nato to be smart or consistent, cause he just ain't. I'm not going to get super into the rest of the story, because if I had to describe it at the end of the day, I would say it's rushed, unorganized, and trying to do too much. Like, once you get to the mid-ish point of Volume 3, that's where stuff really starts happening, and it goes from, like, 5 to 15 to 100 really fast in the second half, and the plot just gets so messy, but just really weird, and it makes you question, how did we get here? I'll also slip this in and not explain it, but I would say the real villain of the series is Lotus, Lucia's brother, and that's all you're gonna get for how weird this gets, considering I didn't mention him before. Now, going on to the art portion for this series. It's fine. It's nothing groundbreaking. Really, it's very 90s / early 2000s coded for sure, but comparing Desert Coral to the other series that I've reviewed already on here, Plus Anima was made back in 1999. You can tell which one had a lot more time, love, and care put into it when it comes to almost every aspect of each of the series. The character designs, the shading, the consistency. I can't even say Desert Coral's art gets better over time, because I mean, less than 2 years isn't gonna change much. The character designs are very basic and boring, Camus and Lucia being the only two that really stand out, but even then, not really. And Nato is just a copy and paste of a lot of male protagonists from that era, so he's nothing special at all. I will say, the covers are the most interesting things about this series. There's two versions of the covers. One where the covers and the spines are flat red with a character illustration and the title on the front of it, which is very simple, but I weirdly like the look of it, like, a lot. It looks good on a shelf. And then the second one is, instead of the red background, it's like a gradient from a khaki brown to white, which also looks pretty nice, but again, I prefer the red. Okay, so that was a lot to cover, but I think I covered everything that I wanted to. Now, would I recommend Desert Coral for you guys to read? I really want to say no, but the thing is, there's just something about Desert Coral that has drawn me to it for years. I have neglected to mention that this, up till now, has taken me 15 years to even get all 3 volumes, at least the English volumes, of Desert Coral and to read them all. I had volume 1 back when I was 10 years old, I still do, and I remember wanting more volumes of it as a kid because I was interested and I was a kid and I didn't really have great taste. I got volume 2 5 years ago, excited to finally find volume 2 after so long because I thought it stopped at volume 1, and then I got volume 3 online finally for this video upon discovering that Volume 3 was at least translated also into English, because it didn't make it very clear. Desert Coral is a mess, but man, it's a mess that I finally got to see through with my own eyes. Not fully, mind you, but enough where I wanted to talk about it. And just reading through a mangaka's first work is always interesting to me because it is always wild on the quality. If you know how to read Japanese, German, Spanish, or French, and you can actually get all the volumes, or you can actually find it all online in those languages, then I say, give it a shot. It's confusing and weird, but I do think it is an interesting mess to sit through. And as for us folks that only read English or Taiwanese, I would say probably don't bother unless you can somehow find the rest of volumes 4 and 5 fully translated, or are willing to Google Translate to your heart's content to get that full story. Though I already know that it's going to be a rough translation process and some things are going to get lost in translation, but, you know, sure, why not? Who knows, maybe the rest of volumes 4 and 5 really make the series worth the read, and it helps make up for its weird start, but I kinda doubt it. Well, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Have You Heard of It? I'm still new to the YouTube space, but I hope you liked what I've made and you'll give my other videos a shot. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on my videos, and tell me about your thoughts on Desert Coral if you've actually read all the way through it. So anyways, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.